Hello guys and welcome to the Wars and Weapons channel. Now, in my last video, I talked about the history of gunpowder and I ended it by telling how great a weapon called the flame spear was. Now, the Chinese actually used it and they kind of formed the world's first ever firearm that was used in battle. It was something like you would hold it like this, and while the enemy was charging, you'd just light the fuse, it would go and it would act as a flamethrower in the front of your spear, burning the enemy's line of charge, which they later made metal casing to make it reusable, and added pellets for it to act as a shotgun, which created the world's first ever firearm. Now, after that, they later on noticed that the flaming part of the spear actually had more use than the spear itself. So, which led to the creation of the world's first firearm, which starts a whole new age of history, a whole new age of wars with firearms. So they decided that they're going to make this whole thing into one separate thing from the spear, so that while the spearmen were using spears, the archers, they used archers back at the time, can use firearms instead of the regular bows. So they decided that they're going to sit and discuss what they're going to do with it. As you remember in my last video, I said the gunpowder actually deflagrates, which means it actually can produce a lot of gas. So they decided that if they can push something like a round shell out of a barrel that actually pretty closed, while the bullet was placed, the air would have no place to escape and go to waste. So it would have to pressurize and make the bullet go on with fast speed. So they sat and they managed to invent the world's first ever muskets. So they were these big weapons that you would have to hold like this, and then after one shot was fired, you would have to put it down on the ground. They had some kind of a horn thing with a hole in the end. You'd have to open it, and then you had to pour a little bit of gunpowder in there, and then you had some kind of shell, you'd put it in there, and then they had some kind of thing that you would have to pull out and push so that the gunpowder can get, the bullet can get and seal the area for the gunpowder was in, so that the gunpowder can't actually come out and go to waste. So after that, the first ever prototype of a gun was actually ready. So they tested it and it had enough force to actually kill a human. So they decided that it's perfect. Now they can use this weapon on the wars beside their fire spear, like they would also use their fire spear. So after that, the use of firearms in China grew, and then later on it found its way in the Middle East, which was actually the golden age for the gunpowder, because actually a Syrian scientist called Hassan al-Ramah actually managed to write a book about gunpowder, and he managed to make some new things, such as the world's first ever torpedo actually had an illumination or a picture of itself in that book. So yeah, you could find some really great things in there. Though he actually pointed at gunpowder as Chinese snow, to actual rockets as Chinese arrows and other things, but fireworks, he also pointed out fireworks as Chinese flowers. So they got the idea that he definitely got it from a Chinese source. But he actually managed to argue. He got the idea from his father and his forefather. So he actually argued that gunpowder was actually normalized in Syria and Egypt somewhere around the 12th century or the beginning of the 13th century. So he actually argued, and he had a valid point. He had lots of great inventions in his book. He had some kind of bombs, he had firearms, and he also mentioned, as I said, the world's first ever torpedo, which was called an egg that would move and burn. So it was a pear-shaped thing. It had two sheets of metal. They would pour gunpowder and they would put two rods in there and they would close it down. They would put a rocket as a propeller, so it would actually go, and most of the ships were actually wooden at the time, so it would actually move, go under the ship, and when it exploded, it would burn so fast, it would burn the ship down, which actually came up the world's first ever torpedo that actually had the ability to sink ships. He was a great scientist and managed to invent gunpowder, lots of things with the gunpowder. Later on, the Ottomans used it to create muskets, which they used in the Persian-Ottoman wars in my last video, and they used it to fight the Europeans due to the fact the Europeans actually didn't have access to gunpowder as fast as the Muslim world, as the Islamic world did. In fact, after Islam spread to Mongolia, the Mongols actually had the gunpowder recipes with them, so they gave it to the Islamic world, so they were able to use it before it actually spread it into Europe. So the Ottomans actually had more time to create muskets than the Europeans, which made the Ottoman musketeers superior to European musketeers. So that's enough for today again. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the war bell to be notified of the rest of the wars that occur on the channel. Thank you for watching again, and stand by for the next video.